Welcome to the series of Relational Database Management System. Myself is Fatima Rafiq, Assistant Professor, Abida Namda Senior College, PC Department. Today, we will see what are cursor. Cursor is a temporary area whenever we have cursor is a pointer that points to the result of the query. Whenever we execute the query, we know that the execution of the query is stored as the result set. So for a particular type of query, what will happen that the system by default create a temporary work area where these results are getting stored. So cursor is what? It is nothing but the pointer to that particular area where the result is getting stored. PLSQL control the context area through a cursor. So whenever like cursor is like a pointer, if we want to toggle, or if we want to search the how many number of rows are there, or some thing like that, we will be able to use the cursor for finding it. A cursor hold the row one or more and return by the SQL statement. The set of rows cursor hold is referred to the active set. Whenever set of rows that cursor hold is actually active set. Like for example, if I have one query, select star from student, and if it has a 5 number of rows, so this is the active set where the cursor is actually pointing. PLSQL has two type of cursor: implicit cursor and explicit cursor. Implicit cursor are the cursor which is automatically generated by the Oracle while an SQL statement is executed. Whenever there is a SQL select statement is getting executed, or update or insert is executed, by default for that the Oracle itself maintain the cursor, and that is called implicit cursor. They are created by default to process the statement when DML statement like insert, update and delete are executed. Oracle provides some attribute which is known as implicit attribute to check whether the status of the DML operations. Some of the attributes are found, not found, row count and is open. These are the attribute of the cursor, and with the implicit cursor, here the attribute found, what it does, or when we are using it, it returns the value true if the DML statement like insert, delete and update affect at least one row or more row, or a select into statement return a one or more row. Otherwise it return false. Whenever we are executing the DML statement, if that DML statement has some effect, at that time the person found will return true, otherwise it will return false. Not found is the opposite of found. It returns true if the DML statement like insert, delete and update does not affect any of the row, and if the select into statement returns 0 rows, otherwise it returns the false. It is just the opposite of percent found. Then is opens. Whenever we are opening a cursor, we need to check whether the cursor is actually open or not. So whenever we are using this is open, it returns the true if the cursor is open. It always returns a false for a implicit cursor. Remember, implicit cursor is already, we know that it is generated and maintained by the SQL itself. So whenever we are opening this implicit cursor, what it will give us? It will give us the false result, because the SQL cursor is automatically closed after executing the associated SQL statement. The last attribute which is there with the implicit cursor is person count. It returns the number of row affected by DML statement like insert, delete, update, or it returned by the select into statement. So if we are using these type of attribute with the explicit server, it will explicit cursor, it will return as the actual result. But if you are trying to use with the implicit cursor, it is not available for us, because these cursors are creating and maintaining and then vanish by using the system itself. Explicit cursor are created by the user. We know that implicit cursor is managed by the system itself. Now the next type of cursor is the explicit cursor. Whenever we are using the explicit cursor, these are created and maintained by the users. These cursors should be defined in the declaration section of PLSQL block onto the select statement which return more than one row. Whenever we are using the select statement, and if the select statement is returning more than one row, at that time we can able to use the explicit cursor. These are first step of creating the explicit cursor. Number 1, declare the cursor. Number 2, open the cursor. Number 3, fetch the cursor. And number 4, close the cursor. Now we will see how to use them. Declaration of cursor to initialize the memory. Whenever we require a cursor to be declared, we must declare it in the declaration section with the SQL statement. Once the cursor is declared, then the next task is to open the cursor. Because it is a temporary area, if we want to use it, we need to open it. So we will be using one keyword, which is a open cursor. Whenever we are writing the open cursor, it allocates the memory for the cursor and make it ready for fetching the row which is written by SQL statement. Then after that, we need to, because we have opened it, we need to fetch the cursor and retrieve the data. Fetching the cursor involves accessing one row at a time. Though the SQL statement executed and it returned more than one row, but the cursor is able to handle one row, able to fetch one row at a time. Then after fetching, we will be, because we have opened the cursor, we need to close it explicitly. So we need to close the cursor. Closing the cursor means releasing the allocated memory. Whatever memory is allocated for the cursor, it will be released then. Now we will see the example of explicit cursor. Here I have written one explicit cursor. This cursor is actually written on the student table. I have the student table. Let me just show you what in the student table I have. I have select star from student. So I'll be having only one value. Let me just insert one more value. I have another value, and let me just change it little bit. So I'll be doing this as 2 and Sana. That's it. Okay. Here because mobile number is unique. Now if I want to execute this, now how many number of values I have? I have 2 value with the student. Now I am writing this explicit cursor. So the first thing is declaration of cursor. So declaration of cursor is happening with the student select statement. Here what we want the cursor to be display the roll number and name of the student. So we have declare a variable which we require, then we declare the cursor, then we open the execution section, and the next step is open the cursor. Because the cursor name is stud, I have opened stud, and then loop, because we don't want only one row but we want multiple rows to be fetched. So that's why we have written fetch stud into roll number and name. These are the variable which will contain the roll number and name. Exit when stud not found. We have just seen what is not found. If the record is not found, it will get exit. And then if the record is there, we just want to print it. And then we are doing ending the loop, then closing the cursor which we have opened, and then end. I will just take this, I'll copy this and I'll be pasting it over here. Because it is a cursor and it does not have any what we can say, we have directly declared in the anonymous block, so it will give us the output. See here, one Sabha and one Sana. If you pay attention carefully, here these are the name and roll number of the students. So this is the way we can able to write the cursor. If you want to write the cursor for fetching the particular student from the database, at that time you can use the parameterized cursor. The parameterized cursor is a cursor which take the parameter. So here number is a parameter which we are passing to the cursor, and here I am explicitly passing a roll number 1 because I want the record of roll number 1. Rest of all the thing with the cursor like declaration, opening, fetching and closing will remain same. I'll just copy this and I'll be pasting it over here and then slash. So what it will do, it will only give me the result of roll number 1. I think it is clear to you how to use the cursor and how to use the parameter with the cursor. This is the parameterized cursor. If you have any doubt, write in the comment box. Thank you.